Previously, we traced the mysterious word "wait" back to Maestro Benedetti's private student materials. His nephew revealed that the annotated page was supposed to remain in the family, yet somehow escaped. We discovered a returned mail log, a Brooklyn forwarding address, and a name reduced only to initials, SR. An American student. From the late 90s. Someone who lifted her pen the same way the writer of the word did. Now, with the conservatory librarian calling us back, we're about to learn who handled the page after Benedetti. And why the word was written at all. Part 2 begins with the first real lead, and the first real contradiction. We stood in the hum of a cheap lamp and boxes that smelled like dust and air conditioners and old glue. The mystery didn't feel romantic. It felt administrative. That's where truth usually hides. The nephew slid the spiral notebook across the table. "You can photograph the page with the initials," he said. "And I'll email the librarian's number." "Thank you," Maya said. He nodded, then added, almost as an afterthought, "For what it's worth, my uncle never wrote notes on the back of anything. He hated contaminating paper. If there's an English word on it, it wasn't him. Only one person ever got away with writing in English in his studio." "Which person?" Lorenzo asked. He shrugged. "The American girl. The one he kept arguing with. The one with the scar on her finger who lifted the pen between letters." Silence. Not heavy, focused. "Do you remember her name?" I asked. He shook his head. "Just the initial. S." He looked at the portfolio again. "Pages travel," he said quietly. "They leave shadows." On the drive back, the evidence rode between us like a fourth passenger. No poetry. No ghosts. Just a trail getting shorter. "If Benedetti kept stories," Lorenzo said, staring straight ahead, "he kept hers too." "Maybe," I said. "Or he kept someone else's who touched yours." He nodded once. We didn't talk the rest of the way. We didn't need to. The next step was obvious. We were calling the librarian. We didn't wait. The word on the back, "wait," wasn't a warning anymore. It felt like an instruction. I called the conservatory librarian from the dining table, put the phone on speaker, and moved us out of our usual orbit. We cleared a wall. Maya taped up a blank sheet of craft paper. Lorenzo uncapped a marker. We were going to build a trail we could see. "Conservatory Archives, Dr. Laird," the voice said, brisk, alert. "This is Ed Lane," I said. "I'm tracing a Benedetti item." "A beat. You're that Ed Lane." "Guilty." "What's the object?" "Piano leaf, 1896. And there's graphite on the back." She didn't breathe for half a second. "One word?" "Yes." "Wait?" Lorenzo's marker touched the paper, wrote it in the center, "Wait." "I've seen copies," she said. "Never the original." "How many copies?" I asked. "2." I pointed at the paper. Lorenzo drew 2 arrows, copy A, copy B. "Different sources," she added. "Same word. One clear, one degraded." "So 2 hands?" Maya asked. "2 handlers," Dr. Laird corrected. "The original moved." Lorenzo wrote, "moved." Then he underlined it. He wasn't freezing this time, he was taking point. "Email me whatever you can share," I said. "I'll pull notes," she said. "Call me back in 10. The line clicked. We had 10 minutes of air. "Okay," Lorenzo said, marker poised. "What do we know that holds up?" "Benedetti kept a student's folder," I said. "Your sister studied with him. The nephew remembers an American S. The shipping log showed SR on a returned package. So the S might not be Sophia," he said. He didn't flinch when he said it. He wrote a second S under the first and added R. That's a contradiction, I said. Good. Mysteries need friction. Maya drew a simple timeline, 1896 Benedetti nephew estate us. Then she dotted 2 places on the line, copy A and copy B, and circled them. 2 copies, 2 moments, she said. The page keeps leaving shadows. My phone pinged. Email. Subject, Benedetti, student materials, selected notes. We skimmed together, standing. Photocopy requested late 90s. Annotation visible on reverse, graphite. Second copy arrived anonymously a decade later. Librarian tried to locate original, unsuccessful. Notebooks for 3 promising students referenced, not archived. Notebooks, Lorenzo said. He wrote it large, upper right, notebooks, 3, and circled it twice. If she was one of the 3. We don't assume, I said. We test. I called Laird back. We're looking at your notes. What do you make of the second, anonymous copy? It complicates the chain, she said. Different contrast, different machine. And the degraded one, someone overhandled it. The graphite was almost gone. Could the weight be a later addition? Maya asked. Yes, Laird said. Absolutely. By who? Lorenzo asked. I don't know, she said. But here's where it gets awkward. In the 90s, Benedetti complained about one student writing in English on Italian paper. He kept mentioning my American S. Lorenzo capped the marker for a beat, thinking. Then he wrote American S in the margin and didn't look at me when he did it. What was her last initial? I asked. Silence, then, I don't have it. But, one of my old inquiry forms mentions SR asking about the page with weight. That's years later. Maya tapped the timeline at the estate era. Matches the nephew's log. That's not my sister, Lorenzo said, not in denial, just guarding the data. Her initials weren't R. Which leaves you with 2 S's, I said. Yours, and someone else's. He nodded and drew 2 parallel lines on the craft paper. S, Sophia. SR, unknown. Dr. Laird, I said, one of your notes mentions a faint diagonal line beneath the word. Yes, she said, on one copy. Like the start of another letter. Which letter? Lorenzo asked, too fast. It looked like the beginning of an S, she said. But I could be wrong. He didn't react the way he has been, no freeze, no breath stall. He wrote possible, S start as a bullet. Then, quietly, we won't turn that into destiny. Good, she said. Approval, not comfort. Now my complication, Benedetti hated writing on originals. He called it contamination. If there's English on the back, it wasn't him. So a student, Maya said. Or a librarian. Or a dealer. Yes, Laird said. And I can tell you one more thing you won't like. Try us, I said. One of the copies, the clearer one, wasn't made here. The machine line and toner pattern match a model our conservatory never used. Contradiction, I said, pointing. Lorenzo wrote it down, copy A is not equal to conservatory. So the page was somewhere else, Maya said. Or someone elsewhere had access, Laird said. Which is worse? Lorenzo's jaw set, not with hurt, but with leadership. We need to see what you have in person. You do, she said. No email for the sensitive items. Tomorrow morning. And bring the page. I'll prepare raking light, protective cradles, and our handwriting samples. Handwriting samples? I asked. She didn't hesitate. We have composer exemplars. And we have student scripts for 2 of the 3 promising students. 2? Lorenzo said. Not 3. The third notebook never made it to us, she said. It's missing. That's our hunt, I said. Ed, she added, you know the rules. If the page is authentic and the graphite belongs to a former student, the conservatory will recommend custody. I know, I said. But recommendation isn't ownership. True, she said. But public preservation protects the graphite you care about. She was right. And she was also the friction we needed, a different goal in the same story. We'll be there at 9, I said. Come early, she replied, and hung up. The room exhaled. Not relief, readiness. Lorenzo stepped to the wall and labeled the craft paper in big, decisive strokes. Facts. 1896 page. Graphite, weight, later hand. Pressure marks / hesitation. Handled post Benedetti. 2 copies, 1 not from conservatory. American S. documented. SR in shipping log. 2 student scripts on file. Third notebook missing. Questions. Who wrote Wait? Where did copy A originate? Who is SR? Did Sophia touch this page? Why did the page leave the family, return, leave again? Maya took a photo of the wall. If this were a film, this is the board shot, she said, trying to lighten the air. It worked for a second. Lorenzo smiled without looking away from the evidence. He turned back to the table and lifted the portfolio. He didn't cradle the page like a relic this time, he handled it like a responsibility. If American S is someone else, he said, we follow her trail too. If her story crosses ours, fine. If it doesn't, we still find out why the word is there. That's leadership, I said. Not grief. He shook his head. Grief can come with us. It just can't drive. We packed the kit, lamp, loop, gloves, lens cloth, a flat cradle I hadn't used in years. I slid the page back into the safest sleeve I owned and labeled it with a date and our initials, not because the conservatory needed it, but because I wanted the record to remember who carried it this far. Before we left the room, Lorenzo nudged the craft paper with the back of his knuckles, just enough to feel the texture. If the notebooks exist, he said, she wrote in them things she never told me. Maybe, I said. Or maybe someone else did, and that matters too. He nodded once. Not a flinch. A choice. We set alarms for the morning. We turned out lights. We let the apartment return to being an apartment instead of a map room. At the door, he looked at me. Tomorrow we find out whether the word was for me. Or for someone before you, I said. He held my eyes. Either way, I'll listen. And for the first time since this began, I believed him. The conservatory smelled like paper and varnish, clean, dry, cautious. Good. We'd need that. Dr. Laird met us at the reading room door with badges and rules. No small talk. She pointed to a long table under soft lamps and set out a cradle, a loop, and 2 slim archive boxes labeled student scripts. Forms, she said. We signed. Gloves on. Work, not worship. Your leaf, she said. I slid the sleeve out and settled the page into the cradle. She angled the lamp low, the graphite sharpened on cue. There, she said. Placement matches what I remember. Lorenzo didn't hover, he took a position at the end of the table with a pencil and a notebook. Not a spectator. A student. Good. Pencil first, Laird said. Then hands. She read the shine along the downstroke of the W, checked reflectance against a hardness chart at the sleeve's edge, never touching the paper. It looks like magic until you know it's just patience. Late 90s to early 2000s, she said. HB range. Modern. Lorenzo underlined the word modern once. No drama. Data. Scripts, he said, taking point. SR before MC, please. Laird nodded and set SR down first. Lined pages. Drills. English headers with Italian terms in the margins. In the lower left of one page, a tiny habit, the pen lifted between connected letters, leaving a breath where none should be. I said, 1 quirk is noise, 3 in a row is signal. She drew 2 more pages, later dates. The lift was still there. So were the diagonal starts on S-curves, a muscle memory that doesn't care who's watching. Suggestive, Laird said. Not proof. We checked MC clean hand. No lift. Not our graphite. Copies? I asked. Laird slid a manila folder across, reference only, redactions in place. Copy A, high contrast, crisp toner line, wrong for the conservatory's machine. Copy B, lighter, streaked, beneath the word, a faint diagonal, first motion of a letter or just a thought warming up. Where did it come from? Lorenzo asked. No return address, Laird said. Postmark smudged. Likely NYC. And if a copy surfaced here while the family retained custody, someone broke chain. She let that hang a beat. Which makes A or B a breach, or a lie. He wrote chain breach on his page and drew a box around it. Lone letter, Laird said, opening another folder. She placed a single page on the table. Embossed American crest. Thank you, Maestro Benedetti, for the loan of the old page for phrasing work. No date. We gave it air. No one spoke. I looked at Lorenzo, he looked back, eyes steady. The page traveled. That mattered. Email next, Laird said, pulling a faded printout. Header barely there. 2011, subject, question about leaf with weight. Sender signed with initials, SR. She tapped the bottom line. Read. He did, and we isolated it, alone on the table, alone in the room. If the family still has it, please tell the brother the word was mine. I wrote it because he never paused. He needed to, once. He set the page down, clicked his pencil, and printed in his notebook. Not for her. For me. We let that sit. Then he breathed, once, and moved on. Forwarding service name, he asked Laird. If we write to SR. She shook her head. Redacted in the system. I can't release it. Supervisor clearance? Lorenzo asked. Even with clearance, you'd need a custody check. Then do the custody check, he said, not combative, decisive. She hesitated, then reached for a phone. Give me a minute. She stepped into the hallway. Through the glass we watched her talk, gesture, listen, gesture again. She returned with a different box. Not scripts. Donor, uncatalogued correspondence. Good news and bad news, she said. I can show you accession scans under staff supervision. I cannot open the sealed folder without written authorization. Whose authorization? I asked. Deputy Archivist, she said. And, if chain was broken, legal. Legal? Maya repeated. If a family retained custody and a copy surfaced from elsewhere, we need a record, Laird said. Ed, if chain was broken, this becomes more than a courtesy. It's policy. Friction, finally. Real, clean stakes. Understood, I said. Show us what you can. She set down 3 thin letters and a printed email on a foam support. The top letter, American School Crest, thanked Benedetti for the loan of the old page. No return address. The second referenced phrasing study for an American student. The third was a note from Benedetti's assistant about shipping delays, old sheet returned late, graphite on reverse, please advise. Maya let out a tiny sound, surprise held behind closed lips. What did he advise? Lorenzo asked. We don't have that reply, Laird said. But we do have this. She pulled one more sheet, a conservatory inquiry form. Notes in Laird's hand. Anonymous copy received, student portfolio dispute, destroyed after inquiry, and in the margin, her personal note, lift between / I repeated x3. She glanced at Lorenzo. That's what I meant by signal. He nodded. Then, agency again, if SR wrote the word for the brother, confirm SR isn't my sister. Show me SR's full name. I can't, Laird said. Privacy. The forwarding service then, he said. Name only. I'll find it myself. She hesitated. Then, initials only. AFS. That's all I can say without triggering an ethics review. Thank you, he said. No edge. Just forward motion. Now the contradiction again, she said. The family retained the original. Any copy made afterward was against plan. If the original truly never left, then either the family changed its plan quietly, or someone made a copy without consent. Breach, or a lie, I repeated. Exactly. She reached under the table for one last box, heavier, labeled accession, paper, unsorted. Inside, photocopy of an accession sheet we hadn't seen. Redactions everywhere. But along the right margin, where the black marker hadn't quite connected, a sliver of address survived, BKLYN, 11, 7th Avenue plus a partial block number. Undeliverable, 2001, Laird said. Return to sender. Same year as your nephew's log. Maya snapped a photo. We can triangulate block/avenue combinations from old directories. City maps. Library time, she said, already sketching a crude borough grid on our notepad. And the sealed folder? I asked. Laird's answer was the obstacle we needed. I can't open it for you today. Lorenzo didn't flinch. He made a call. Then open what you can, the donor index. If the sealed folder references a forwarding service, put in the clearance request now. I'll wait. He turned to his notebook and wrote 2 lines, deliberate. Write SR via AFS. Brooklyn address, triangulate today. Laird studied him. Something changed in her face, a recalibration from gatekeeper to partner. I'll submit the request, she said. No promises. That's all I'm asking, he said. We repacked the page. She didn't argue about custody, she simply said, document every condition, every time. I had already done it. She saw that and let it stand. At the door, she offered one last line, the kind you live on in investigations. If the copy came from here while the family retained the original, someone broke chain, she said. Sometimes broken chains lead to people. Sometimes to rooms that don't exist on floor plans. Outside, the wind made the day honest. We walked 2 blocks before anyone spoke. AFS, Maya said. There are 3 forwarding services in the city with those initials. 2 downtown, 1 in Queens. We start with Queens, Lorenzo said, fast. Closer to the postmark Dr. Laird guessed. He checked his watch. If we move now, we can make 1 visit before they close. Brooklyn address? I asked. After, he said. We get the forwarding path first. Then we chase the address. He looked at me, not for permission, for alignment. She didn't write, stop, he said. She wrote, wait. So I'm going to pause long enough to do this right. He wasn't asking me to hold the door anymore. He was holding it open. The city felt like it was holding its breath. Maybe that was just us. The forwarding service, AFS, sat in a converted warehouse in Queens, the kind of place where old mail went to either die or reappear. A bell chimed when we walked in, a thin metal ring that made the place feel colder. A woman at the desk looked up. Gray sweater, hair pinned back, expression neutral in the way people get when they've spent years dealing with strangers' secrets. "Forwarding or retrieval?" she asked. "Retrieval," Lorenzo said, stepping forward before I could. He placed our printed note, SR's initials, on the counter. "We believe this address passed through your service around 2011. She barely glanced at it. "We don't release recipient details without authorization." "I'm not asking for personal info," he said. "Just whether the name existed. Whether mail was forwarded. Whether the address was current." "That still counts," she said. Maya leaned in. "Is there a way to request confirmation? Through a supervisor?" The woman considered us, 3 people with too much need in their posture. "Supervisors back at 2, she said. "But even with them, we need a reason." "It's about a missing artist's notebook," I said. "A historical one. We're trying to confirm its trail." That changed her expression a little. She wasn't persuaded, but she was curious. "Sit," she said. "Let me see what I can check without breaking anything." She took the paper and disappeared behind a frosted panel. Lorenzo exhaled for the first time since we arrived. "Obstacle," he muttered. "Good. Means we're getting close." He wasn't wrong. Smooth trails are usually false ones. 10 minutes later, the woman returned with the page, but now it had small notes in the margins. She placed it on the counter, tapping a line she'd written in tiny block letters. "Active, 2010 to 2012. Forwarded, once. Destination, redacted. Note, account closed by holder." "You got this legally?" Maya asked. The woman shrugged. "I didn't tell you any names. Just status. And you didn't hear it from me. Is there any forwarding service that handled the next address?" I asked. She hesitated, then wrote 3 letters beside the note. BPL. A library. Brooklyn Public Library. A branch code. "You're going to want the history desk," she said. "They access old directories. Might get lucky." That was all she'd allow. We thanked her and stepped back into the cold. The sun had dipped lower, turning the street a dull metal color. "Brooklyn," Lorenzo said. "Same borough as the address on the accession sheet." "We'll start at the library," I said. "Then check the block." He nodded and started walking fast. Too fast. He caught himself, slowed, then said, "Sorry. My body remembers urgency." "That's okay," Maya said quietly. "Urgency is a kind of memory too." The Brooklyn Public Library smelled like old HVAC and ambition. We found the reference desk tucked between giant wooden shelves. The librarian, mid-50s, glasses, cardigan, listened without blinking as we explained we were tracking a returned item from 2001. "Block number?" she asked. I gave the partial one from the unredacted margin. She typed, frowned, typed again, then stood. "Come with me." She led us to a side table loaded with oversized binders. She pulled out 3, reverse directories 99-01. "These list occupants by address," she said. "Let's see who lived on that block." We flipped. Columns of names. Some crossed out. Some with arrows indicating moves. Lorenzo found it first. A line with half a black marker swipe across it, an attempt to redact that stopped just short of the name. Rivera, S. He stared at it. Not breathing fast, thinking. "SR," he said. "Different last name than my sister, obviously. But same initial. Do we get a match on age?" Maya asked. The librarian flipped to the next binder. Sometimes they recorded occupation. She scanned, then shook her head. Nothing. Just the name. We copied the entry. Took photos. Logged the directory number. And then the librarian did something unexpected. She pulled another binder from beneath the table. This one's trickier, she said. Eviction and vacancy logs. If someone stopped receiving mail, they often show up here. Only if they moved suddenly, I said. Exactly. She opened to 2001. Halfway down the page was a line. Rivera, S., lease terminated, forwarding requested, undeliverable. Lorenzo's fingers curled tightly around the binder edge. The librarian gently placed her hand near his, close enough to show presence, not pity. People disappear from paper trails for all kinds of reasons, she said. Don't assume the worst. He nodded once. Eyes fixed on the name. And then, does this list say where the forwarding request was supposed to go? Not here, she said. But the microfilm might. A new obstacle. The good kind. We followed her to a narrow room of humming machines. She threaded a reel labeled 2001, housing records. The scrolling numbers blurred past until she froze the screen. Rivera, S., forwarding destination refused by addressee. Lorenzo whispered, refused. That doesn't mean personal, I said. Could have been a policy thing. Or the wrong address. But he wasn't upset. He was focused. Determined. Do we have neighbors? He asked. The librarian checked the directory. 2 long-term residents on that block. We took the names and left. The building sat on a quiet street where stroller wheels and dog leashes clicked against the sidewalk. The stoop was chipped, the buzzer panel dented. We rang the unit next to the old Rivera listing. A woman in her 70s answered, holding a dish towel and suspicion. We're trying to reach someone who lived here around 2001, I said. S. Rivera. The woman frowned. Rivera, yes. Not long, though. She studied Lorenzo's face. You look like you expect bad news. Don't. He didn't breathe for a second. Then, did you know her? Barely, she said. Quiet. Always carrying a little notebook. Lorenzo's throat moved. Maya stepped in. Do you know where she went? No, the woman said. But I remember one thing. She got a letter once, looked official. She opened it on the steps. She laughed at it. Said, they think I'm someone else. Someone else? I asked. She didn't explain. But she wasn't upset. She just shook her head and said, if they want me, they'll try again. Who was they? Lorenzo asked. No idea, the woman said. Then softened. You're looking for her because of someone else, aren't you? He nodded. My sister. The woman's expression shifted, not pity, understanding. Rivera was the type who noticed things. The type who'd try to help a stranger without saying so. She thought for a moment, then added, she mentioned once she taught a girl how to breathe. Just once. Said the girl was wound tight like a violin peg. Pretty thing. Sad eyes. My chest tightened. Lorenzo's eyes lifted slowly. My sister played violin. The woman nodded. Maybe that was her. Rivera said she only saw her one afternoon. But she remembered her. Some people stick. Silence held us. Then the woman said, if you're meant to find Rivera, you will. She wasn't hiding. She was just moving. She gave us one final detail. Before she left, she said she was going somewhere quiet. North, she said. Where people still write letters. She shut the door gently, as if closing a chapter. Lorenzo turned to me. His expression wasn't grief. It was resolve crystallizing. She met Sophia, he said. Even once. She saw her. She helped her. She wrote the word. And now? Maya asked. He looked at the name on the directory copy in his hand. We find her, he said. Wherever she went. I nodded. And we bring the page. He swallowed hard, then squared his shoulders. We didn't find her on the first try. 2 towns north, nothing. A library board with a curling flyer for a quilting circle and a sign-up sheet with names that looked like weather: Marla, June, Gail. No Sarah. No S. Rivera. The next town had a post office with a corkboard and a child's drawing of a blue cow. It also had a clerk who shook her head with the kindness of someone who wishes they could help more often. By the time we reached the third town, the snow on the shoulders had hardened into gray ridges, and the light felt thinner, like the day had been stretched too many times. Lorenzo stared at the horizon the way you stare at a metronome that refuses to change speed. Maybe we're chasing a rumor, he said quietly. Maybe, I said, but rumors travel on something. He nodded and kept driving. We stopped at a small post office behind a church. The lobby was 2 benches, a scale, and a corkboard full of sun-faded notices. I don't believe in signs, only in attention, but I noticed a sheet at the edge of the board, thumbtack barely holding: Rivera Community Writing Group, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Someone had doodled a tiny river beneath the name. We turned at the same time. No drama. Just recognition. Inside, the clerk looked up from sorting envelopes and said, "You missed her yesterday." Rivera? Lorenzo asked. The clerk nodded. She checks box 74. Leaves postcards for folks who need a word. A word? Maya asked. Sometimes, breathe. Sometimes, call. Sometimes just a blank card, the clerk said. Says people fill in their own word better than she can. Lorenzo exhaled through his nose, a small laugh he caught before it escaped. It was the first sound in 2 days that didn't belong to searching. We waited on the bench. Not to perform patience, because waiting is a thing you do with your body. It has weight. It takes room. At noon, the clerk handed us a folded photocopy. She told me to give this to the brother if he came, she said, as if such visitors appear regularly. Left it yesterday. The copy was our page, older, blurrier, almost eaten by light. In the margin, in that careful, slightly lifted hand. If you found me, I'm nearby. I'm not hiding. I'm practicing. I'll walk in when you ask. Sr. Lorenzo closed his eyes, then opened them. We're asking, he whispered. We sat like that for an hour, asking without shouting. Maya placed the original in its sleeve on the table between us, not in the middle like an exhibit, but near the edge like something you pass back and forth while talking. At 3:12, the door opened. A woman stepped in, 40s, hair braided, canvas bag with frayed straps. She paused, not for effect but for breath, the way people do who are careful with rooms. She saw the sleeve. Then she saw Lorenzo. You came, she said. Good. Sarah? He asked. She nodded and set her bag down like a small ritual. Then she sat without asking permission, which somehow felt like respect. You found the copies, she said. And you made them, I said, giving it air, its own beat, before anything else. Yes, she said. I was wrong to handle the page at all. Benedetti would have yelled. But the studio was chaos when he died, and I kept telling myself I was preserving something. You were, Maya said gently. Maybe, Sarah said. Or maybe I was keeping it close because I didn't know how to let go of the part of me that needed it. She smiled, embarrassed at her own honesty. There was the crack we needed, warm, human. Lorenzo leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You saw my sister? Once, Sarah said. Outside the studio. She was wound tight. Violin case on the ground, hand on the handle like she was forcing it to stay. How did you know she needed help? I didn't, Sarah said. I knew I did. I was the one who couldn't slow down back then. I wrote, "Wait," on the backs of library receipts so I wouldn't rush out of the room before I'd heard what it was trying to say. She tossed him a small, apologetic smile. I just lent your sister my word for a minute. What did you say to her? Maya asked. I said 2 breaths in, 1 out. Like resetting a bow. She rolled her eyes and tried it anyway. Sarah's mouth softened. For a second her shoulders did that thing shoulders do when the string loosens. Then she waved like she didn't want me to see her cry. We let the image sit, a girl in a Naples doorway, too straight for her age, learning 1 breath. Why the copies? I asked. Because the page started to feel like a person who wouldn't stop following me, Sarah said. I made a copy and mailed it to myself to see if it would arrive. It didn't. I mailed one to the conservatory anonymously. That one arrived. It felt like proof that the page didn't only belong to one room. And the notebook? Lorenzo asked, almost bracing for disappointment. She took a breath. The notebook wasn't your sister's. It was mine. I wrote there when I couldn't play. Benedetti told me to practice composition, I wrote instead. Why keep it? Maya asked. Because I wrote 1 line the day I met her, Sarah said. I wrote, if a note isn't working, don't force a new note. Stretch the rest. It was meant for me. But I copied it into the front of the notebook so I wouldn't forget where it came from. Lorenzo blinked hard, and for once it looked like forgiveness, not pain. Did anyone else touch the page? I asked. We found 2 copies, 2 toner patterns. It looks like someone else handled it. Sarah nodded. There was another student in the studio that week. He photocopied anything that moved. He saw the word on the back and asked me if it was a secret. I told him no, and he made a copy anyway. So the chain still isn't neat, I said. It never is, she said. Pages travel. They pick up people. The clerk shuffled in the back. A drawer squeaked. The building made its small sounds like a heartbeat you don't notice until the room is quiet. Lorenzo touched the sleeve, not gripping, just acknowledging. If you wrote it for yourself, and my sister only saw it once. Then it was still hers for a minute, Sarah said. And yours now, if you want it. He looked at me. Then at Maya. Then at Sarah. What do I do with it? He asked, careful this time, not asking for orders, asking for a way to carry it without breaking anything. Sarah glanced at the corkboard where people posted notices for piano lessons and lost cats and a winter coat swap. You keep the original safe, she said. You choose where it belongs when you're not afraid of choosing. And until then, make a copy that can go places without asking permission. Put the word where it can work. Work? He asked. Words on paper are tools, she said. They don't heal anyone by staying hidden. He nodded slowly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thin notebook, edges frayed, elastic band tired. She slid it toward him but kept one finger on the cover. I thought about giving this to you, she said. But it's mine. It got me through years I couldn't play a thing. It's full of mistakes and almost songs and sentences that embarrass me. I can't give you my proof I survived. He smiled without looking at her. You shouldn't. She lifted her finger. But I can show you the line. She opened to the first page. If a note isn't working, don't force a new note. Stretch the rest. He exhaled like someone lowering a heavy instrument into its case. The clerk cleared her throat. Group starts in 10, she said. If you're staying. Sarah stood, shouldered her canvas bag. We read first. Then we write. Then we walk outside and try not to rush home. Lorenzo looked at the page, at the corkboard, at the two benches that had become a kind of chapel. "Can I leave a card?" he asked the clerk. She slid a stack of blank postcards toward him. He wrote slowly, letters deliberate, hand steady. He didn't show us. He didn't need to. He pinned the card to the board among bake sales and babysitters and lost mittens. We walked out together into the clear cold. The roads were quiet. The day felt taller. At the car, he handed me the sleeve. "We'll return it to the conservatory when we're ready," he said. "Not because we're letting it go. Because I want it to keep working." "It will," I said. "And the copy?" Maya asked. He held up his phone, took a careful photo under the eave where the light was soft, and sent it to himself with the subject line, "For the days I speed." We stood there another minute without talking because endings deserve air. Then he said, almost to the parking lot, "I can hear her without hurting." Not a proclamation. A discovery. On the way back, the highway unspooled like staff paper. Snowfields. Telegraph poles. A hawk on a fence post pretending not to watch us. We didn't talk about fate, or coincidence, or whether we would have found the town if the flyer hadn't hung by one thumbtack. We didn't need to. Some things earn their way to you because you kept moving and you kept stopping when the word said wait. When we reached the city, the light had turned the color of a piano's fallboard in the late afternoon. He carried the page upstairs not like evidence, not like a wound. Like a breath at the end of a long phrase, held just long enough to let the room change shape. The door clicked behind us. Quiet, and then the part where you walk forward.